The argument there is that when I say we as melanated persons are being taught by any person who does not look like us, any person who cannot explain to us the nuances that it is to be melanated, any person who, when they go in the corner store, won't get followed, should not teach our children. But the argument goes further than that. The argument is that our children should be taught at home. By the age of 5, children from other backgrounds know 2 languages. By the age of 5, our children are struggling with basic arithmetic. Which peg goes in the right hole? And it's not to say whose fault it is. The fault is, once again, accountability. We don't hold ourselves accountable for the education of our children. We turn on Sesame Street. You know what I mean? So it should be an active involvement with the parents first. That should be their first teacher.
Jessica, what about for for the parents who are working moms? Do you suggest that we put our jobs and stay home and teach?
I don't care how tired you are when you get off of work if you have a child. If your child is struggling, it's your responsibility as a parent. I don't have the jurisdiction to decide what's right or wrong. I don't have that power.
Okay,
What I'm saying is that if you have children, your responsibility is to your child first. To whatever knowledge you have, to give to your child. Not saying that you're doomed to the pits of, the hot place for not doing so, but if you're not doing so, you allow someone else to do it. And you allow your child to be open to someone else's point of assumption, which is dangerous because children absorb everything. Everything they hear, they only have to hear it once. Everything they see, they only have to see it once. And it's in there.
So pretty much what you're saying is that we shouldn't just leave it up to
someone else,
schools, but we also should be teaching
I work
at
with
home
children
as well.
in the Baltimore Urban Debate League between the ages of 8 and 14. I've had parents tell me, well, that's your job. It's not my job. I'm not a behavioral psychologist. I'm not a behavioral moderator. You know what I mean? That's something different. So saying that it's someone else's job is different from making it your own responsibility.
Educational / indoctrination, and then there's educational / enlightenment. And what we get, or what we are experiencing for the most part, is educational / indoctrination. And that has to change. And that's only going to change if we change it. And we can only change if we do some serious self-study. Because the kind of educational / enlightenment that we need is not being taught in the school systems in this country. So it's incumbent upon all of us to do the kind of research and reading that will allow us to educate our children more correctly. You got college teachers that are still passing down indoctrination because they are indoctrinated. They are not enlightened, So to change that, we must do some serious self-study.
Absolutely. I think that they're extremely insecure, and I don't know where that comes from, but I definitely think that's a form of self-hatred. Because if you don't love yourself, why would you want to be with someone who looks like you? Because you don't love yourself, you don't love the way you look, so you're not going to want to be with someone who looks like you and go somewhere else. Be accepted from some other race because that makes you feel like you're worth something when you're accepted by somebody else, right? That's what I think. I think that it's extreme case of self-hatred, extreme insecurity. Like that is, yeah.
I don't think it is self-hatred. I just think it is debilitating ignorance. And I think the oppression has damaged their psyche to such a manner that they would be engaged in certain kind of behaviors that can be deemed destructive behaviors. But at the same time, though, J.A. Rogers wrote a book called Nature Knows No Color Line. Right? And if anybody was to fall in love with somebody else of another race, I can't call that self-hatred, though I understand that black men, particularly those who are in your higher income brackets, right, choose the white woman because that white woman to them is what they have been taught to be the highest standard of beauty and how they will most be able to be accepted as they walk in that white world, right? Self-hatred because you, no. Law of nature is that nature shall be repetitive unto herself. That's the first law of nature. Okay. To answer your second question, I've seen great love all my life. I've read of great love all my life as relate to African people. The ability to advance oneself is evident in the history of us in this country. We may have made small progress, tiny steps, but we have made progress. I lived in a time when our people, those who chose integration as opposed to move on nationalistically, different age ranges, different backgrounds, I've seen all people out there in the streets pushing for a better way of our people. And people define them as hating themselves. Elijah Muhammad defined them as black people hating themselves. I see black people that he would define as hating themselves out there fighting for a better day, fighting for liberation. And I don't believe a people who hate themselves can advance on any level. To me, it's an impossibility. I think you can be confused. I think you can be in an unhealthy state of ignorance, an unhealthy state of indifference. But hatred is too powerful a term because in my lifetime, what I've seen our people achieve. I've been a part of a movement. You and maybe there are others here who, as old as I am, who have seen that movement and can testify for the greatness, the creativity of it. How do you create like that when you hate yourself? We weren't getting any help from the European world, from America. We marshaled all of that based upon an ability to say we are no different from anybody else and we are deserving of justice and righteousness. And we marshaled a movement. I think if you marshal a movement that says you cannot hate yourself and move forward. The correction is, my position is not that we have the positive image. My position was we are not weighed down by self-hatred, right? Because there's positive and negative images. Okay, that's.
But when I say self-hatred, I'm not saying that everybody in the black community hates themselves. I'm saying that there is a percentage, a considerable percentage of those in the black community that hate themselves. I'm not saying that everybody is subject to this self-hatred. So I don't know why that it seems that, I guess teaching the importance of self-worth and knowing where you come from, because if you know where you come from, then you wouldn't hate yourself, obviously. So I feel like that's an important step in curing that self-hatred.
It comes back to education for enlightenment. It comes back to us owning our own institution, passing down our own values, our own lessons of history, understanding where eldership is in the community, and understanding that the greater role is to teach ourselves as opposed to be taught by others. The division is because we have been indoctrinated, and the indoctrination is debilitating, and it's ongoing, and it's projected at us. I teach youth, and I chose to do that because there's a saying that says it's better to raise a child than change an adult. And I believe that. So the youth that I'm teaching will take on what they are taught to take on, because I teach the martial arts, I teach Pan-African thought, I teach history. So I'm raising youth to become soldiers in our movement, and hopefully they will do the same thing. That is my approach, to teach the youth, to leave them a legacy, for them to carry that legacy on. That's just my approach. It's also the approach of the Pan-African nationalist community, because we're doing that across the nation. Historically, we've only made progress through great movements. So bring the movement back. Bring the institutions back that sustain us. We have no other choice. Every time we advance, the enemy will come with another plan. We will survive this. We haven't quit. You know what I mean? The 60s is an example of that. The early 70s, the 20s, and the Garvey movement is examples of that. The enemy's going to be our enemy. They will do what they do. You know what I mean? And soldiers and leaders must step forward, marshal the movement. Come on, let's reach for that creative genius that's inside of us. Let's change it.
You said that, well, we haven't achieved the resources, in a sense. But if you look at the statistics and how much our community spends currently, we spend upwards of 60 million. We have the resources, we just don't necessarily have a collective conscience in order to utilize those resources effectively so that we can have those movements, in a sense, within and to further progress within this society. We do have the resources, but we spend more money on alcohol and other drugs and so forth, as well as cars, clothing, and all the other apparel, rather than putting it into our own educational system and our own, for instance, entrepreneurship centers and so forth, so we can uplift our own children. So we have those means. We just have to come together and figure out exactly how to bridge that gap, which is facilitate the conversations, and as well as teach those principles.
The first thing that anybody who wants to move has to do is channel their energy before you start to move. You have to figure out where you're going and how you're going to get there, the plan. Stop being afraid of what somebody's going to do to you for having original thought. That's the first thing. When you stop, if you stop thinking about what someone's going to do to you for having original thought, any movement is going to go as far as time. So, first thing you do, who do you want to be a part of your movement? Sometimes some people got to go. Second thing, what do you want to get accomplished? Figure that out. When you figure out what you want to get accomplished, then there's steps to doing it. It's actually physically doing it. Just do it. Nike commercials don't exist just because. Genius, just do it. Do it. If you want to build a building, you get your blueprint, you get your materials, you build a building. You hire your people, you build a building. That's it. It's not hard.
And finally, with regard to everything that you're saying, the last part of that is learn to utilize your resources around you, especially with regard to the laws of the land. So if you can utilize the laws of the land in your, I guess, your side to better advocate for yourself, then you can have progress within the society in which you live. You got to learn how to navigate your own systems as well.